Today we'll be talking about the word self. So before I start the lesson, um, actually you guys will help me by pressing the subscribe button, by liking this video, and there are a lot of videos I've done both in chemistry, physics, and biology. So I want you guys to like it. Let me share it to other students so that they could benefit from it as well. So today I will be talking about cell. Cell is one of the fundamental and rudiment topics in biology that a lot of students do benefit from. So it is very simple, like I used to tell students, our cell is so important to biology. Likewise, atom is very important to chemistry. So soon I will drop a video on atom, talking about who discovered atom in chemistry, breaking down where atom comes from, who is the first person that's ever thought of atom, and how is the experiment to prove that atom really existed is performed. And as well, just like how motion is very important to physics, so that is how sun is very important in biology. So as a matter of fact, many textbooks have really talked about cell. So today I will not be telling you what you've already known. I won't be telling you what you can read from a textbook. But today I'm just here to tell you the facts, the summary of everything you need to know about cell. Let's go into cell. Before I move on, don't forget press the subscribe button. The subscribe button means that this I'm not collecting money from you. It means that you are trying to say, "Ah, thank you," and the like button you just please share me all that. I want you to do more of this, and the share button is like you want other people to gain from. So please, I'll be happy if you can do this too. So for the cell, cell is basically known as is the basic structural and functional unit of life. Yes, this particular definition is very common. If you are used to a textbook like essential textbook, right in Nigeria, that's what most you students always use, essential textbook, you will see that cell is defined as the basic structure and functional unit of life. I'm going to break this down so that you can understand it. If you study textbook like Udodome biology, that's college biology, you see that it says that cell is the basic unit of protoplasm. So this is also another definition. So in summary, cell is the basic. This is where I'm going. That is, it is the foundation of everything. Cell is very important to the extent that is the foundation, is the rudiment, is the basic. It means that without cell, we won't be talking about biology. Don't forget that biology is the study of what? Living thing. So it means that no cell, no living thing. What is actually strange about this cell? Let me explain to you. Imagine, imagine that I draw an image with a dot. You know these dots are very tiny. If I fuse it together, they are very, very tiny just to form image. Hope you can see it. Now you can see little dots combined together to form this particular image. So if it's raw group, it will be so much later that you will know that the little thing actually comprise to form this. So this is what we call cell. For every living organism, we are made up of cell. The fact you have to know is that for every particular living organism, we have cell. One of the characteristics of living thing is called death. So one is said to be dead when the cell in the person is no more in existence. That is when the cell has died, the person will also die. So that is the meaning of cell. So cell is the basic structure. I look at it, is the basic. So the word basic, I'm trying to bring the definition that basic means that is the most important, is the foundation, is the basic unit. And this is the most important unit, is the basic unit, or you can call it as the basic structure. Now it means that cell also determine the structure of the body. For example, we have the cheek cell. So the cheek cell determine how your cheek will look like, depends on the DNA formation. So we also have ear cell, because the ear is the tube. We have skin cell, and so on and so forth. Every part of the body is actually made up of cell. We have blood cell, which is red blood cell, white blood cell. We have that is thrombocyte as well. So we also, so I said that cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life. Now it's also functional. So it means that apart from the fact that cell is the basic unit, it is the structural unit. Likewise, it's also a functional unit of life. So from what we have seen, the key point to note here is that cell is the basic of everything. and is the one that determines the structure of everything, and is the one that determines the function of everything. So that's it. Your brain is working the way it ought to work because the cells are functioning the way they ought to function. So I will still be talking about organization of life so that you can understand better. So after this, so after from this, the study of cell is known as cytology. Cytology can be defined as the study of cell. The study of cell is simply refers to as cytology. So let's go back and talk more about cell. Like I said, cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life. Hmm. Let's talk about story. I love story when it comes to biology. I really love story. So for cell, the story of cell started in the year 1665. Hmm. So what happened in 1665? A British, a British, like some textbook will say an English scientist is a British or English scientist. I've actually read a lot of books concerning this. Um, so some textbook will tell you that the man is not just an ordinary scientist, that he's also an inventor. That is, he used to produce something. So a British scientist or English scientist or an inventor called Robert Hooke. Robert Hooke is actually a great man and hero. So called Robert Hooke was the first man to ever come up with the idea of cell. And I want you to listen very well. I did tell people that what other scientists discovered about cell, everything would have been discovered by this man. What did Robert Hooke do? Now let's look at it. In the year 1665, a person named Robert Hooke observed a thin slice cork of an oak tree. He observed a thin slice cork of an oak tree. What is the meaning of this? Assuming this is an oak tree, Robert Hooke just cut a little part of the bark, just a little part. He placed it on top of his compound microscope. So he placed the thin slice cork on the top of his compound microscope. However, I want you to observe this to be real. A thin slice cork. What is the meaning of cork? Cork means dead cell. This is one of the mistakes of Robert Hooke. He observed a dead cell. However, I'm going to explain everything in detail for you. But don't forget, the first scientist that come about cell theory is Robert Hooke in 1665. You don't need the year, but actually you can show it how brilliant you are. When I was like most of you guys, anytime I study story like this, I just study the year so that by the time I'll be giving it to my teachers, it will be so interesting. So he observed a thin slice of an oak tree under his, we call it his crude oil compound microscope. That is the name of the microscope that is used by Robert Hooke in 1665. Compared to nowadays, we have electron microscope. Now it can view as 100 times of the crude oil compound microscope. So it means that the crude oil microscope then that was used by Robert Hooke was very old. As a matter of fact, based on the study, based on the study I studied about this, is that the microscope was even designed by Robert Hooke himself because don't forget I told you he's an inventor. So he observed the things like of an tree. He now noticed that everything inside the cell, look at what he noticed. He noticed that everything inside the cell is silent. Everything is silent. That's number one. Then he now observed that 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 inside the cell, inside the same cork of an oak tree, he observed that everything is just silence. Then silence. Then he also observed that everything has a little box. He observed that there's something like a little box there. What is the first observation? Silence. Then he now noticed that everything has a little box well arranged inside the cork tree. So assuming this is the cork tree that he cut, he observed from the microscope that everything looks like this. Then, as an observation, you now look at it that this thing is like a little box. You now imagine that that little box is like a room. The fact that it's silent, it means that it has no television, a room that does not have television, that does not have shade, please will just be silent. You now look at it that this thing is just like a room that is silent. Then it's not different from prison. Can you see that observation? You now look at that this thing is not different from prison. You now imagine it to prison that in prison, prisoners does not have the access to watch television, play, everything will just be silent. Then you now call it cell. And you now look at this cell, is the same homophones, that is the same spelling, the same pronunciation with normal cell of present. So that is where the name comes from, cell. So he observed the fact that it's silence and that the fact that it is arranged into chamber. However, we'll be talking about this later. This is one of the fallacy of Robert Hooke, one of the mistake of Robert Hooke. The cell is actually silent because he used dead cell. I told you that once a cell is dead, the organism will actually die. So he made use of dead cell. So assuming the cell is not dead, if you observe this box, you will see that something is moving there. But however, he was not the one that later discovered that. He only discovered this. He discovered cell. He discovered cell from a thin like cup of an oak tree. He placed it on the top of his what? Inside the crude oil compound microscope, and he observed that it is silent, and he observed that it contains little boxes arranged into chamber. And however, he recorded it in his book called Micrographia. That is the name of the book he used to record it. And as a result of this, he was the first man to ever come up with the idea of cell. And as a result of that, because he is the first man to discover cell, he was given the father of cell. You know, when I was so early in biology, then these are the facts that we need to know as a student. Then that who is the father of biology? The father of biology, the father of biology is Aristotle. Who is the father of cell? The father of cell is Robert Hooke. Who is father of genetics? That's Gregor Mendel, and so on and so forth. So this is everything that is discovered by Robert Hooke in 1665. So after Robert Hooke, we move on to another scientist. So as year increased, right from don't forget Robert Hooke started his own in 1665. As early as at 1835, a great scientist emerged, a scientist known as Matthias Calendin. So he is another scientist that evolved after sorry, it's not Matthias Calendin, rather Felix Dujardin. I'm very sorry for that. Dujardin. So a great scientist known as Felix Dujardin. So then Felix Dujardin did something very awesome. You know, I really love him because why? He didn't give up actually. He didn't look at it that everything about cell has been discovered. He did not give up. You know, Robert Hooke has observed his own. He noticed that there is a box chamber, and he noticed that the box chamber was silent. So what Felix Dujardin did is that he observed a fresh specimen of a living organism. He now placed it under microscope. When he placed it under microscope, he now noticed that something that looked like a code, very, very tiny, something that looked like a code is present inside each box. Look at the difference now. When Robert Hooke look at it, nothing is inside the box. But when Felix Dujardin look at it, something is inside the box. So he now call it, when he observed it, he was like, wow, this is very nice. So that thing looks like a code to me. He now call it SAR code. So SAR code. So for O-level students, actually, the SAR code is later renamed as protoplasm. It's later renamed to protoplasm. But for A-level students, at least for those who are doing GPA by GMB, the protoplasm, Dojani discovered the protoplasm, but however, he called it SAR code. For those doing IGMB and GPA, please note, especially GPA, the SAR code is later renamed into protoplasm by a man called Purkinje. So Purkinje renamed the SAR code into protoplasm. But you don't need it actually. So now let's go back. So we have said that Robert Hooke discovered cell. Dujardin looked further. He looked further into what Robert Hooke has discovered, and he called everything what protoplasm. He simply means that if I say protoplasm, protoplasm simply means cell. Because why? Protoplasm refers to as all the cell organelles. It refers to as all the living content in the cell. And just imagine if protoplasm refers to all the living content in the cell, definitely protoplasm is a cell. So I want you to note now is that Robert Hooke discovered cell. He's the first scientist to ever come up with the idea of cell. Because of that, he was called the father of biology. The father of cell. Sorry. Robert Hooke, because he's the first scientist to ever come up with the idea of cell, is called the father of cell. Felix Dujardin looked further into what Robert Hooke has done, and he observed that they are living contents, and he called it protoplasm. That's just everything. For A-level students, Felix Dujardin called it sarcode. It's later renamed into protoplasm by Purkinje. Don't forget. So let's move on. So we have seen two scientists, Robert Hooke in 1665, Felix Dujardin in 1835. The next scientist now is Matthias Skalendin. Matthias Skalendin. That happened in 1838. Matthias Skalendin is a German botanist. As you all know, biology is divided into two branches. We have the botany, we have the zoology. Botany is the study of plants, zoology is the study of animals. So, Matthias Skalendin is a German botanist. He observed plants. When you observe plants in the zone, He just came up with the idea that all plants are made up of cell. That is, all plants are made up of cell. That's just so these happens, Matthias cleansing, it happens in 1838. His own is that he observed plant because he's a botanist and he saw that all plant cells are made up of what? Cell, simple like ABC. So the next scientist now that we have to look up onto is Theodore Schwann. Theodore Schwann. Theodore Schwann. So in 1839, Theodor Schwann in 1839. So this is next scientist. Theodor Schwann is also a German zoologist. As you all know, zoology is the study of animal, and those who study zoology are called zoologists. So he also observed that all animals are made up of cell. So from what we can see now, it means that plant is made up of cell, animal is also made up of cell. So the last scientist that come up with the idea, this one does not actually discover anything. He already brought a rule. It is called, his name is called Rudolf von Virchow. So that is his name. He came up in 1856. So Rudolf von Virchow. So what did he do actually? Rudolf von Virchow postulated a theory that all new cells arise from pre-existing cell. This is the idea of von Virchow. He brought it that all new cells arise from pre-existing cell. I don't want to talk much because when he brought out this idea, scientists actually argue with him. Yeah, to some extent, it's very correct. Why? I and you, we are new cell. We arise from pre-existing cell, that is old cell. And who are the old cell? Our parents. We are the new cell we came from our parents, which are old cell. So it means that by the time you give birth to your new offspring will become the new cell, you will become the old cell. So that is life. So every new one wants to come from pre-existing cell. But scientists actually argue with him about the creation, that if truly new cells come from pre-existing cells, then they were like the first human being. Where did they come from? So they actually argue with him, but you know, at least to some extent, this theory is actually correct. Is actually correct to some extent. So when time permit me, I will explain the Big Bang theory, how Earth is created, how scientists believe that Earth is created, because it's not all scientists that believe that what Bible actually says that it is created by the Lord and so on and so forth. So that is called divine evolution and organic evolution. When I have time, I will surely explain that. And please don't forget, if there is any area you didn't understand very well, ensure that you comment under the video so that I can know. And when you are downloading this video, ensure that you download it with good quality. So he came up with the idea that all that needs to arrive from pre-existing. So from what we can see, we have Rudolf von Virchow in 1856. So these are the five scientists that contributed to cell theory. So for O-level students, that is for those in SS1 to SS3, you are likely to be asked this question. Why? Because this is already asked by WAEC, I think in 1988. They asked that leads to scientists that contribute to cell theory and their contribution. I have told you their contribution. Robert Hooke is the father of cell. He discovered cell from 18 slides of Koch-Covenantry. Felix de Jardin discovered the protoplasm. Matthias Linde discovered that all plants are made up of cell. Theodor Schwann discovered that all animals are made up of cell. Rudolf von Virchow postulated theory that new cell arise from present cell. All these are the contribution and the scientists that contribute to cell theory. Now let's look at cell theory. Cell theory simply means that with all everything we have known about cell, what is the summary of everything? Number one, it states that cell cell is the basic structural and functional is the basic structural and functional unit of life. Some textbooks can split this into two. Number one is the basic structure. Number two is the basic functional. I don't have to. Number two, what can you say about cell? Is that all living organisms are made up of cell. all living things are made up of cell. I hope you're getting my point. Number three is that living thing can either be multicellular or unicellular. I'll be talking about this later. Every living organism can have more than one cell, and some can only have one cell. So I'll be talking about kingdom. Under the kingdom, I'll be talking about the unicellular organism, which are mainly the protozoa and the protophyta, which in general we call them protists or prototista. So check the video out. I'll be talking about the kingdom. So number four, I'll talk about that cell is the basic social and functional unit of life. All living things are made up of cell. Living things can either be multicellular or unicellular. The fourth one is that there is no life apart from the life of a cell. There is no life apart from the life of a cell. That's another thing. There's no life apart from the life of a cell. Number five is that new cell arise from pre-existing cell. New cell arise from pre-existing cell. So we have seen that cell is the basic structure and functional unit of life. All living things are made up of cells. Living thing can either be multicellular or unicellular. There is no life apart from the life of a cell. That is, no living organism can exist without cell. It means without cell, no living thing. That's the meaning and it's a theory. And five said that new cell arrive from previous cell, according to Rudolf Virchow. So for O level, this is where it stops. Even if you check your common textbook like essential biology, this is where it stops. But for those of you who are doing GPEP and IGNB, actually these are the standard, but you can add more to it by saying that that the cell contain DNA, that is deoxyribonucleic acid, which stores genetic material. So I repeat my word again. For those of you that doesn't know the meaning of DNA, DNA is known as deoxyribonucleic acid. Deoxyribonucleic acid. yRNA is known as ribonucleic acid. So, in case if you want to copy anything and I clean the board so fast, anytime you are watching the video, feel free to pause the video, copy what you want to copy down, then you play the play button back. Please don't forget to download this in good quality. So, this is the part one of this video. I will be continuing the part two. Please check it out. I will send it soon. And please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share.